Mormon Stories podcast is a production of the Open Stories Foundation. All donations to Mormon Stories are fully tax deductible and go directly towards keeping the podcast alive and towards building a community of support for Mormons like you.
Come, come, ye saints, no toil nor labor fear, but with joy wend your way.
So you were risking a lot to go talk to Delcy and Jason. Okay, so you talked to Delcy. What did you find out? What was Delcy like?
Amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, it's worth saying, what was Delcy's religious affiliation?
Delcy was not religious.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
But she asked Jason, what do we do? Should we call DCFS? Should we call the police?
She's asking Jason, a student, one of the students.
And Jason said, no, we should call Paul.
Call Paul. So Delcy knew about Paul?
No, I don't think so.
Jason
knew about Paul.
Jason knew.
How did Jason know about you? Turn the mic just a little bit towards your mouth, if that's all right.
Jason's a really courageous kid, and the preceding fall, he and some other students at Snow Canyon High School had committed themselves to starting a gay-straight alliance, and they encountered all kinds of opposition in southern Utah, from teachers, faculty, administration of the school district, and they had local politicians trying to prevent them from starting a gay-straight alliance. They'd reached out, the ACLU provided them with some assistance, and when there was some coverage about the story, I reached out to Jason via email, told him that I'm an attorney in Salt Lake City, which is true, and told him that if he had circumstances arise that he needed some help, that I would try to be a resource for him. So I made that contact with him, and then it was months until my phone suddenly rang one day right before lunch.
I think it's worth briefly touching on the history in Utah of just trying to start these little clubs in the high schools. Wasn't super simple, was it?
No, it hasn't been simple at all, and
and it's still not over, right?
I had to write a newspaper editorial just this weekend calling for more change. But the fight in Utah for gay-straight alliances really goes back into the 1990s. When I was in law school, there was a huge fight over a gay-straight alliance at East High School. And
that's where High School Musical took place, right?
I
think they'd be friendly.
That's actually true. Zac Efron came to one of the soccer games I coached when I was coaching at East High. But the fight at East High School led the Salt Lake City School Board to shut down every single extracurricular club for a couple of years to prevent the formation of a gay-straight alliance. The Utah legislature in, I think it was 96, it might have been 97, had a secret meeting, a closed meeting in violation of state law to plot how they could try to pass laws to discourage or prevent gay-straight alliances in public high schools. So over the next 10 years, the legislature passed a couple of different laws to make it difficult for students to start gay-straight alliances. There was a statute that tried to give school administrators discretion to deny the formation of the clubs because they would be promoting supposedly immoral activities. The existing law makes it harder right now to start a gay-straight alliance than to start, a multi-level marketing company or, fill in the blank here in Utah. One of the other really pernicious provisions of Utah law is that to participate in a gay-straight alliance, students are required to have parental permission. And that's so problematic because many of the students who are in most need of a safe place can't go to their parents and come out and say, I need to go to a gay-straight alliance. So the way the law has been written is really to try to force kids to stay in the closet and to keep them from finding a safe place in our schools.
Yeah, it's kind of awful. And there are still many schools to this day without gay-straight alliances, right?
That's true. And there's also a law that prohibits the, quote, advocacy of homosexuality in the schools. And that law puts our educators like Delcy in a really difficult position because, imagine being a teacher in a conservative school district having a student who's questioning come and ask, is it okay to be gay? That's a student that is just crying out for the answer, yes, it's okay. But for the professional educator, if you answer, yes, it's okay, is that promoting homosexuality? Is that violating Utah law? So that puts our professional educators in a really difficult position, and it leaves students in an even worse position where they may not be able to find factual information and may not be able to get support that they can't find at home or that they can't find in their churches.
This is another sort of obvious question, but Alex, what did that Gay Straight Alliance Club mean for you at that moment in your life?
Everything. Without that, without meeting Jason and having a teacher that I could go to, I don't think I would have ever met Paul. And without Paul, I have no idea where I would be right now.
Yeah. You may not have made it, fair to say?
No. I actually had a fake boyfriend while I was talking to Paul and going to school so that I could try to keep it a secret.
It's fair to call him a beard, is that fair? Is that fair? Is that offensive? So, Paul, what was that phone call like?
Well,
Was it who called you?
Jason called me.
Okay.
So I was in my office.
Tell us where you work, just to give him a plug.
I work at a law firm in Salt Lake City called Ray, Quinney & Nebaker. It's one of the largest firms and oldest firms in the state. And it's a firm with a tradition of public service, but also a firm that is a reflection of the community in lots of ways. So my phone rang, and I should also say that I was just returning to the office after being away for several months. My brother was in the military, had been struck, had been killed after being in a coma for about 4 months. So I was about 2 weeks back from the services at Arlington National Cemetery, and my phone rang, and it was Jason. And Jason said to me, I'm here with a girl. She's in real trouble. Will you talk with her? So I, of course, said yes. So the phone was handed to Alex, and she told me the story that you've pretty much heard so far today. And I was just awestruck. I mean, my jaw dropped. I wanted to check my calendar to make sure it was still 2011. There was a piece of me that wondered, could this really be true? But I listened very carefully to Alex, and it sounded very real, and I was very concerned. So right in the very first phone call, I offered to represent Alex. I explained to her I'd do it for free. And we formed an attorney-client relationship, and right then we discussed the breadth of that relationship, that I would try to help her with all of her problems, dealing with the custody issues, dealing with the potential prosecution of her girlfriend, and trying to get some accountability for the couple that had been torturing her. The other thing we did in the very first conversation was talk about a game plan, and I wanted to find out how stable the situation was, because I had never done a child welfare case before. This wasn't right up my alley. I had some notions about what we might want to do, but I wasn't certain, and I knew the stakes were really great just from the way Alex was talking. So Alex assured me that the situation at the home was at least stable. So I asked if she could, do another 24 hours and give me a chance to make some phone calls and research the law and find out about where we might find a safe place for her. And that's what we agreed to do.
So Alex, you brought Paul on, but you didn't immediately say, get me out of here. True? So what led to that situation changing?
Well, I'm going to interrupt.
Oh, please.
I'm going to say, because there was something else she did tell me in the first conversation, which was, call the New York Times.
Get me out of here.
She was pretty clear about get me out of here. I knew what my mission was going to be.
But you didn't ask to be removed that day, right?
Right. I didn't want DCFS to come into the house, find nothing, and then leave me there.
Right. So you agree for the time being to kind of keep quiet about things, right? What changed that led to you no longer being able to stick around?
While I was actually talking to Paul, I was late to class. And you know those voice messages, your child was 5 minutes late to class. So they got one of those, and they told me that I could not be trusted. And I put the backpack back on, and I stood at the wall, and they told me no more school.
And that was the night that you stayed there until when?
I stood there until around 3 or 4 in the morning, until Johnny was passed out, and I snuck out the back door.
And what'd you do? Where'd you go?
I ran through all of these different streets because I didn't want them to find me. I found a bush next to a bus stop, and I got in the bush and just waited for the first bus to come.
And when it came?
I told the bus driver I didn't have any money and I needed to get to the high school, and she drove me to the high school.
And about what time did you get to the high school?
Early, before it opened. So I hid in this weird crack thing in the wall outside of the high school, and until the doors opened. And I went in and told Delcy I couldn't go back. She needed to do something.
And so what'd they do?
DCFS came, and the police, and Paul. Called Paul.
Well, Jason called me. So we knew at that point that we had to have DCFS involved. But during the 24 hours, while unfortunately Alex was dealing with that situation, I used the time to reach out to some of the leading gay rights and child welfare organizations in the country. And you might be interested to hear what one of the leading gay rights lawyers in the country told me when I was asking for advice about what do I do to help this girl. And she, after I explained that, what was going on in the home, after I explained that she had tried at least once to take her own life, and after I explained that this is in St. George, Utah, this advocate told me, put her on a Greyhound to California. Didn't believe that Alex could get a fair shake from the authorities here in Utah or the courts in Utah. Now, that's obviously not something I can do. I couldn't have ethically put her on a bus to California. She was in the legal custody of these people. But it gives you some indication of the concern that people even across the country had about this situation when they heard about it from the start. So when Jason next called me, then it was time for DCFS to get involved. And at that point, Alex was in the custody of the state of Utah, and there began another epic story and a really important legal battle that we could not completely have foreseen.
Yeah, so we certainly don't have time to go into it, and we want to give people lots of reasons to buy the book and read it, but maybe I was stunned. So talk at a super high level about what the process was to kind of set her free, so to speak.
Well, initially, we had a shelter hearing to decide whether she belonged in the custody of the state of Utah. And initially, we had the state of Utah take the position through the Attorney General's office that Alex's parents, they argued, had a fundamental constitutional right to determine her sexual orientation. So the state of Utah took that position initially. Fortunately, I was able to argue against that, and the judge even pushed back on that position. But that tells you the starting point. The starting point was that the state of Utah was going to be deferential to the wishes of these parents, even though Alex had come into the state's custody with, these crazy allegations about, backpacks and rocks and standing against a wall.
How is that a matter of law, deciding who can determine her sexual orientation?
It's not.
Why would they want? Why would they want to rule on that?
The argument was this. The argument was that parents have a fundamental right to raise their children, and to raise their children, for example, in a religious tradition or with moral values. So from that, the state was arguing that the parents had the right to impose their religious views about morality. And it also betrays what the state's view about homosexuality is. The state, like Alex's parents, viewed it as a choice that Alex was somehow making, instead of an immutable characteristic, instead of it being an integral part of who she is. So much of the legal battle that we had, for almost a year, was over that very notion. Is this something that Alex is, or is it just a behavior or a conduct that she's chosen to engage in?
But how would that affect outcome? How would, arguing over whether she is truly, lesbian or really straight, just with some problematic behaviors or temptations, how does that determine outcome in terms of her custody legally?
Well, ultimately her custody was going to be decided based on whether she had experienced abuse and who could provide a safe home for her. There was a point where the state of Utah, a guardian ad litem, a lawyer who was appointed to represent Alex's best interest, the Division of Child and Family Services, all wanted to send Alex back to her parents with essentially no conditions. Alex was legitimately fearful that her parents would try to change her again because they didn't accept that this is who she was. They just viewed it as a behavior that she had been groomed to engage in. So, before this hearing, Alex told me that she could not go back to her parents under those conditions. And it sent just a chill up my back because, as a lawyer, I'm concerned because everyone's lined up against us. We're in southern Utah. We have a judge who has been a guardian ad litem and was I thought could be deferential to the guardian ad litem, and I was really worried that Alex was going to get sent home under those conditions. But Alex, as you've heard, has some steel in her own backbone, and she told me to go fight them. So fortunately, we were able to persuade the judge on that day not to send her back, and that was a big victory that day.
Not to send her back without
any conditions.
Yeah. So Alex, just really briefly, and I actually spoke with someone who's I think she's here, who's served as a guardian ad litem, and it's actually very common for children who have been physically or sexually abused to still want to go back to be with their family. And did you want to go back and be with your parents?
Yes, I did.
Were you conflicted at all, given that sort of they had sent you there and that you had tried to tell them what was going on and they turned a blind eye? Another obvious question, but why would you still want to go back under those circumstances?
Because I know my parents didn't do any of this to hurt me. But who wants to hurt their kid? I'm not a parent, but I have a cat, and I would never send my cat away.
Never do that to your cat.
I would never do that to my cat.
Little mini backpack. It'd be terrible.
So I know everything that they did, they thought it was the best thing. They were trying to help me.
Let me say this. When I first heard Alex's story, there was a piece of me that wanted to believe that her parents must be monsters. Who would send their kid away and have this happen? But of course, I got to meet her parents, and the first time, I met her father. If looks could have killed, I would have been down 9 or 10 lives. But I could tell just right from the beginning how much love there was in the family, both from what Alex was telling me and from what her parents, what they were saying and how they were behaving. And I think the title of this book, Saving Alex, is really right on in that everyone in the book thought they were saving Alex. Her parents thought that they were sending her away and putting her through something that was difficult, but they thought they were saving her from something worse. And the couple that did this to her, that was their justification too. And fortunately, of course, Alex saved herself, and that's what makes this such an inspiring story.
But the parents are good people. I also think, you really love your parents, right?
Yeah.
There's a really sweet moment in the book when they actually let you kind of be alone with your mom and cuddle with her. Talk about that just really briefly.
I got to just hug my mom for the first time in a really long time, and I just felt happy to be able to do that.
Yeah. So Paul, tell us how the state of Utah responded to you wanting to be Alex's attorney. This is, to me, was mind-blowing.
Well, the state of Utah didn't think highly of the idea. Right from the very beginning, the state of Utah took the position that Alex didn't have the right to have her own lawyer. And the theory was that the guardian ad litem, which is a lawyer appointed by the court to represent the, quote, best interests of Alex, the state took the position that that had to be her lawyer. And the problem we had in this case was that her guardian ad litem had a different idea of what would be in Alex's best interests than Alex did. The guardian ad litem wanted to send Alex home at the point I told you about before.
Without condition.
Basically without condition. Actually, the only conditions were on Alex. There weren't going to be conditions on the parents. After we prevailed that day, the state of Utah got really mad, and guess who they got mad at? The state of Utah threatened my license to practice law, threatened to file a bar grievance against me, and filed a motion to disqualify me in the district court. And at the next hearing, the district court thanked me, said that the judge said she appreciated what I'd done, but she was kicking me out of the case and was not going to allow me to represent Alex anymore. At that point, Alex's guardian ad litem and the state of Utah entered into an agreement to enter a final adjudication in the case. Now, Alex had come into the system because she had been abused, but her guardian ad litem and the state stipulated to change the case to determine that Alex was ungovernable, was the finding. And they concluded that she was ungovernable because she had been, among other things, sexually promiscuous, because she had a girlfriend. So her own lawyer, essentially, the lawyer who was supposed to look out for her best interests, somehow believed that it was in Alex's best interest to label her as ungovernable and sexually promiscuous, which was just stunning. So you can imagine that my final efforts at that point were to preserve all of Alex's rights to appeal that adjudication and to appeal the ejection of her lawyer, her chosen lawyer, from the case.
You have to fight for your own ability to represent a client who's asked you to represent them.
This is what you want from every free client.
Right?
So that led us to a journey. We filed multiple appeals at the Utah Court of Appeals up in Salt Lake City. We filed one appeal of the decision to disqualify me. We filed another appeal of a final adjudication, and we also challenged the constitutionality of the guardian ad litem statute. And we took issue with the fact that the legislature said it was not a conflict for the lawyer, the guardian ad litem, to ignore Alex's wishes. And we said that's not consistent with the Utah Supreme Court's mandate that lawyers follow the instructions of their clients. So we were fortunate that the Court of Appeals entered an emergency order that reinstated my ability to represent Alex. And that also put us procedurally in a posture where we could challenge the constitutionality of that statute. And I think the Attorney General's office at that point was concerned that our appeal might be successful and that the guardian ad litem system would be in deep trouble here in Utah. And that provided us with the leverage to get people to sit down and talk with us about what Alex wanted. So what happened next was that we had an appellate mediation where we got all the parties around the table, and we were able to negotiate an agreement that reflected what Alex wanted. So it was really the appellate decision that gave us the ability to really turn the tables and finally get the district court and her parents and the state to listen to what Alex needed to live openly as a gay teenager in the state of Utah.
So the final terms were?
We entered a final order that reversed everything that had happened up until that point, that reopened the investigation against the couple so that we could move to have them held accountable, and that placed Alex back with her parents, but with conditions. And this is what Alex wanted. She wanted her parents to not be able to try to change her sexual orientation. She didn't want them to talk about her sexual orientation unless they were in family counseling. She wanted the consent so that she could continue to be part of the Gay Straight Alliance at her school. She wanted to be able to go to Pride events in Salt Lake City. And then most importantly, Alex wanted to be able to date girls. So this was the hardest challenge she gave me at this point, because the state of Utah did not want to accept an order that said it was okay to date girls. But we had a lot of leverage, and it took us several weeks, but we got an order that said that Alex had the right to engage in normal teenage activities, including dating females. So, off to prom.
How was that, Alex?
I had fun.
Yeah? I want to ask you about that. Excellent. So you got to be reunited with your parents. Mm-hmm. And do you want to talk just briefly about how that was?
It was really weird at first, but it got better. They went to PFLAG meetings.
Tell us what PFLAG is.
Awesome parents and friends of lesbian and gay. It's amazing. If you have a kid who just came out or is struggling, go to one of these meetings. They're great.
They're around, different cities around Utah and around the mm-hmm. country, and it's a real supportive group, right? Mm-hmm. So your parents went to PFLAG?
Yes.
In St. George?
Yes.
How was that?
They were super mad that they had to go. But they came back from their first meeting, and I could just tell it made such a difference.
Excellent. So go PFLAG. And so I think the last part of the book that's a little bit, other than sort of saying where things are now, is your efforts to go back and prosecute the couple. Talk about was that a difficult decision for you? And if so, how? Why?
Yeah, well, at first I wanted them to go to jail. I wanted them to have their kids taken away. I wanted it to be right. But seeing them and having to look at them and watching them lie and make eye contact with me at the same time killed me. And I just turned 18 and I wanted to get out of Utah, so kidnapped my girlfriend and moved to Portland.
Okay. But you did end up prosecuting them, or at least...
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to use the word prosecute. May not be the right word. Term? But what ended up happening is we negotiated so that the Division of Child and Family Services reopened its investigation of the couple, and DCFS ultimately made a finding that there had been child abuse. That caused a juvenile court case to be opened because they had their own children taken from them as part of that. We didn't have a lot of confidence that the state of Utah was going to be enthusiastically prosecuting this couple. So what we did was essentially do our own investigation of them. I sent subpoenas to the teen crisis centers that they had worked at, and then ultimately noticed up the deposition of the couple. And so I put them, with Alex's help, we put them under oath, and our objective was to get them to admit to as much of this conduct as we could. We wanted them to either, if not that, we wanted them to lie outrageously about what they had done so that we could hopefully disprove it. And finally, we wanted to try to push them into taking the Fifth Amendment, because the juvenile court proceeding is considered a civil proceeding. So if you take the Fifth Amendment, it's basically the equivalent of making an admission. So we had a very dramatic deposition, the beginning of which they acknowledged, a good part of what they had done, but tried to deny their motivations and deny, a number of things.
So regarding the claim that Alex had been sent there to have her sexual orientation changed, what was their claim?
They tried to argue that it was because, Alex had been ungovernable again and that she had tried drugs. And this was a persistent theme throughout the case. And I was constantly reminding, the other lawyers in the case that Alex's supposed drug use was less significant than that of our last 3 presidents. But it also put us in a position in the deposition where, as they were telling their story, if they were treating her for drug abuse or other things, the time frame just didn't line up. It didn't make sense why things happened when they did. So we were able to really undermine that story. And then in the afternoon, because they worked in a crisis center, when we were deposing the woman, I got her to admit that she had received training on the difference between permissible discipline and abuse. And she acknowledged that because we had a big stack of training documents from the teen crisis center that she was at. So she was kind of in a box. So she had to admit that she knew the difference between discipline and abuse. Then, I asked her, would forcing someone to stand against a wall wearing a backpack, would that be permitted discipline where you work? And again, we had her in a box, because if she said yes, she was going to lose her job, and she was already suspended. So she acknowledged that, no, that would be abusive. Then we asked her, is the standard, since you're an expert in the standard of abuse, does it differ in different places? Is it the same in your workplace as it would be in your home? And she admitted the standard is uniform, it's the same. So then we asked the killer question, then don't you have to admit that by forcing Alex to wear a backpack and stand against the wall for long periods of time, don't you have to admit that that was abuse? At this point, her lawyer jumped up, made a big scene. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. And I asked, are you invoking your Fifth Amendment rights? And the lawyer said, don't answer that. Don't answer that. So I said, fine.
Let's make a phone call.
I'm going to make a phone call.
Right.
And I did something that I've only done one other time in my career, which is to try to call a judge in the middle of a deposition. So I called Judge Staley on a Friday afternoon at about 4:15 and managed to reach her on her cell phone. And she answered, "Hi, this is Carla." And I quickly explained the situation, and I asked her to order the witness to either answer my question or assert the Fifth Amendment. And the judge granted our request, and right in front of the judge, who is scheduled 2 weeks later to hear the trial about whether or not they committed child abuse, this woman asserted the Fifth Amendment. So that was...
Meaning what?
Well, in the civil context, it was basically the equivalent of admitting that it was true. So it was really the end of her ability to defend herself from the child abuse allegation in the juvenile court.
Pretty good Perry Mason moment, right? Huh? I just horribly dated myself because you guys are thinking, who's Perry Mason? Like, what? Perry Mason? Raise your hand if you've heard of Perry Mason. Okay, not too bad. A mind-blowing part of that interview was when they asked her for how long of a duration you had been forced to wear that backpack. you have already told us it was a matter of weeks, over a month. What did she claim in the deposition?
I think she said an hour or two tops.
Well, she got it to 5 hours.
5 hours.
She didn't have a consistent story about this, and she had also been interviewed by the St. George Police, and I had essentially the transcript of her interview with the police. So I was able to cross-examine her to show that she didn't have a consistent story about how long or how many days, and she was just, in my view, making it up as she went along in the deposition, and I think that's what Alex thought too.
Yeah.
And Alex, there was a really wonderful moment in the deposition. Do you want to talk about that?
Which moment?
Didn't you have a particularly strong reaction at one point?
I did have a strong reaction. Paul got me out of there, though.
What'd you do? Tell the audience.
I said some words. I screamed a little.
You learned that she has a 4-letter vocabulary. So Alex, actually it was at the end of the deposition, the deponent, she was defeated in a way. She knew what it meant. Her lawyer certainly knew what it meant. And there was an exchange, and it was an increasingly vigorous exchange between Alex and this woman. And ultimately, I had to help Alex out of the room.
I thought it was weird that I think she began the deposition by bringing in her daughter and asking if her daughter could what?
Hug me. Yeah.
They genuinely, going back to the title about saving Alex, even at the beginning of this deposition, they genuinely believed, or at least wanted us to believe, that they thought they were helping Alex. At the beginning of the deposition, my strategy was to ask them, how were you helping Alex? Because I knew they had to have some answer for that. She wasn't in St. George for no reason. And that's what launched them into telling us about a lot of the methods that you've heard about today. Because they genuinely thought they were helping.
So, is there any legal outcome to that deposition? Just sort of, what was the legal kind of conclusion?
Well, there was
or consequences?
There was an adjudication a couple of weeks later where they had to negotiate a resolution where they acknowledged that there had been child abuse. The next step, would have been to file a criminal prosecution. And up until that point, Alex's marching orders to me were to try to make that happen. And my law partner, Brett Tolman, whom some of you may know, former U.S. attorney, had helped me connect with the Washington County attorney, and we had meetings about encouraging the prosecution of this couple and potentially the filing of hate crimes charges. But ultimately, Alex, and I could let Alex speak to this, but she changed my marching orders because she decided it was time for her to move along with her life. So ultimately, we ended up going back to the Washington County Attorney's Office and asking them not to pursue criminal charges so that Alex could move on with her life.
Anything you want to say about that decision, Alex?
I don't regret it.
Yeah? Why?
Because I'm happy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So where are you now? Tell us how you're doing now and what you're doing.
I live in Portland with my girlfriend.
Here she is.
I work at
Beautiful
my
girlfriend?
beautiful girlfriend.
Of how many years?
3.5.
3.5 years. Tell us what she's meant to you during this time.
Everything.
Well, how has she supported you?
She's been there for me in every way.
Tell us her name.
Alina.
Alina? Do we want to give Alina a round of applause, anybody? Okay, so you and Alina are in Portland.
I work at the women's shelter. And I'm having a really good time.
Yeah?
Eating a lot of food. Food carts in Portland are amazing. You guys should go.
The food carts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good.
And what made you decide to write this book? What was your goal or intent?
I think if my parents had typed in conversion therapy to the computer and a book popped up, they'd probably read it, and I wouldn't have been sent there. So I want parents to read this. I want to end conversion therapy completely. It's just...
And what's the response been to the book so far?
Good. It's been good.
You pleased?
Yeah.
I imagine you're kind of a private person, so I imagine it's maybe not the easiest to have these details, to be reliving them even tonight, right?
Right.
But I'm guessing it's worth it for you.
It is.
Yeah. To help others. Paul, how about for you? How's this journey been for you?
Well, it's been very rewarding to have been able to help Alex through this journey, and to see her family now and to hear about her family is actually really remarkable, that they've been able to reconcile and that Alex has a great life. If you had told me that this would be the outcome when that first phone call came in, when she described the situation she was in then, I'm not sure I would believe that that she was able to get to this point. But I think it's a story that provides real hope, and I think it's proof that that conversion therapy can be ended, and that the community that ultimately led her to this dark place can itself overcome it.
So, Alex, if there is a young lesbian person or a lesbian female or a gay male or someone who's bisexual or trans, maybe in the audience or in the listening audience, maybe they're really clinging to their faith, maybe they're struggling with their identity, maybe they're considering praying or going to a support group with the intent to change. Or maybe they're just comfortable with who they are, but struggling with being open about that and fearing the consequences of being open and honest about who they are. Do you have any thoughts or tips for them?
Don't come out until it's safe. And if you are trying to change who you are, stop. It's not going to work. I can put in some blue contacts, but my eyes are still going to be brown. So, just, you do you, boo-boo.
And Paul, is it fair to say that these programs persist in Utah?
I can't say that with absolute certainty, but I think there's reason for concern. Over the years, I think there's been a shift where, maybe a decade ago and even before that, it was not uncommon for people to go literally to be changed, to have with the idea that they could stop being gay. Today, I think it's shrouded more, if to the extent it happens, I think it's shrouded in the context of teen crisis, and that for some families it remains a crisis when their child comes out to them. And I think there are still crisis centers here in the state of Utah that will accept teens in those circumstances, and particularly if the family has a gold-plated insurance policy.
Right.
So, this remains a scourge that needs to be addressed. Ideally, the state of Utah would take rank with with several other states in this country that have outlawed conversion therapy, to make it clear that it's a fraud, that it's futile, and that what gay kids need is affirmation, support, and the acknowledgement that they are who they are, and they should be supported for being truthful and for living, as Alex does, an authentic life.
And has there been legislation proposed to outlaw conversion therapy for minors in Utah, or is that in the works?
Not yet here in Utah, but thanks to Equality Utah, whose director, Troy Williams, is here today, I know it's on the agenda, and I'm confident that it will happen someday here in Utah.
And part of the proceeds from tonight's event is going to go towards Equality Utah, and I just want to encourage everyone to support Troy and his good work. Let's make that happen. All right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and open up the floor to just a few questions? And we need you to come up to the mic because this is being recorded. If you're comfortable. If you're not, then you can just try and speak your question really loudly and I may repeat it.
We have a mic back here too if they want.
There's a roving mic?
There's one right here by the soundboard if anyone wants.
Okay, there's a mic back there in the back. Let's just take a few questions. So there's a hand here in the back. Do you want to run to the mic or are you comfortable?
So Alex, you mentioned that there were 2 other boys there when you arrived and a third who came after. And so my question is twofold. One, were these boys also queer? And was that the reason they were there? And 2, how were they treated? Were they treated in similar ways to you? What did they do? How was the situation for them, to the extent that you can talk about it?
They were there because they were gay. I think they were treated worse than I was. I didn't have to hold a stack of encyclopedias while I faced a wall, and they did. And a lot of the times they had to box each other, or Johnny would step in and do the boxing. So in a lot of ways, they had it much worse than I did.
Thank you. Feel free to come up here to the mic, or I'll repeat it.
I just wanted to know how Joanna came into this thing to help.
How did the wonderful Dr. Joanna Brooks come into this equation?
Paul?
Well, actually, it was one of my law partners. One of my law partners named John Mackey heard this story and found it so compelling that he thought it needed to be shared. And he knew of Joanna Brooks and believed that she was the right person to help Alex tell this story because of, Joanna's sensitivity to the situation, Joanna's background, as a Mormon herself. And John believed that Joanna could help Alex write a book that wouldn't be just a diatribe, but could be something valuable for the entire community. So my law partner, John Mackey, gets the credit for making that connection.
Alex, you want to say anything about Joanna and give her a shout out? What would you like to say to her?
This wouldn't have been possible without Joanna. Joanna's amazing. Best ghostwriter ever. She's a lot more than a ghostwriter, though. She's somebody that I can go to with anything. She's always there. I wish she was here tonight.
Can we give Joanna a little round of applause? Is that all right? Love you, Joanna. All right, Paul, do you want to add anything to the Love Fest?
No, it was a privilege to represent Alex, and I'm just so grateful that we were able to reach the resolution we did, and I'm grateful that Alex is in my life now.
Anything you want to say about about Paul really quick, Alex?
Love you.
Oh, sweet. Okay, a couple more questions. Yes.
I have the mic, so I'm going to grab it.
Mike rules. That's Kate Kelly, everybody.
My name is Kate, and I, first of all, thank you for sharing your story and being so courageous. It's obviously a very personal and painful journey, so thank you so much. I haven't read the book. I'm excited to read the book, but what it sounds like to me is more of just a story of child abuse and neglect, as opposed to other types of conversion therapy we've heard about that are more a program or a specific organization dedicated to converting gay people. And I think it sounds like to me the types of abuse and neglect in private homes that is happening might not be able to be legislated. And this is Mormon stories, and we haven't talked very much about the Mormon church. and the culture that propagates this type of abuse. And I can remember, as a Mormon person, thinking, that I can remember thinking, and it was a long time ago, that it was throwing a lifeline to people to help them not be gay. And so, can you talk about the influence of the Mormon Church, maybe any of the panelists? And how we can change that culture, because I know there are a lot of Mormon people who, no matter what the legislation is, aren't going to change until the church changes this issue and stops being blatantly oppressive to LGBTQIA people.
Well,
Thanks, Kate.
Let me take issue with one aspect of the question. Conversion therapy is inherently abusive because, whether or not conversion therapy involves forcing somebody to wear a backpack full of rocks or not, even if it's just emotional, it's abusive. It's rejecting a child, it's rejecting a teenager's identity, and that puts the teenager at risk. And it's dangerous, and it's abusive, and that's why conversion therapy in all of its forms needs to be made illegal. The distinction is, or at least the suggestion that conversion therapy could be something other than abusive was even suggested by the statement that the LDS Church issued yesterday in response to Alex's story. The church said very clearly that it condemns practices that are, abusive, but the church didn't come out and say that conversion therapy in all of its forms is abusive. And the problem is that leaves space for members of the church and other people in the community to think that, well, maybe there's a form of conversion therapy that would not be abusive. And if you combine that with a church that sends signals of disapproval about gay people, you can understand why parents like Alex's believed that they should try to help their child be saved from same-sex attractions. So I just, before Alex answers, I just want to make clear that conversion therapy in all of its forms is abusive and should be outlawed.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. We in our study we surveyed again 1,612 Mormons and former Mormons who were LGBTQ or same-sex attracted, and about 2/3 of them had engaged in some form of sexual orientation change efforts. They averaged 3 different ways of attempting change. Through a psychotherapy or group was sort of one of the less common ways. The more common ways, as I mentioned, were personal righteousness and speaking with a bishop or an ecclesiastical leader like a bishop. And interestingly enough, what we found out of about the 1,000 plus who actually engaged in some sort of sexual orientation change effort, 0% reported an elimination of their same-sex attraction. In addition, there was about 3.6% who reported some slight fluctuation, either a decrease in same-sex attraction or an increase in other sex attraction. Conversely, about 40% of those who engaged in these attempts at change reported it as being harmful or severely harmful. So if you can imagine reparative therapy being a drug, that the FDA had to approve, 0% of the time would that drug have actually achieved its intended goal. And in reality, it was 10 times more likely to result in harm than it was to result in any perceived benefit. And so conversion reparative therapy, and this study has been published in the Journal of Counseling Psychology, which is an APA-approved, backed journal. We published about 8 studies from this one study. And just reparative therapy just fails on every account. And it's really important to note that we can talk about these groups and we can talk about therapists, but again, we have to realize that sometimes the most insidious form, and I'm going off on a soapbox a bit, the most insidious form of reparative therapy is sort of this message that you need to pray harder, you need to become more righteous, you need to put your faith in Jesus. Now, I'm not anti-religious. I'm not against people being Christian or believing in Christ. But when your religion is sort of aimed at you like a gun, basically saying, put your faith in Christ and he will take this from you. And I was priming you a bit to talk about this. when the person takes that seriously and pleads, and sometimes 8 to 10 to 15 years, sometimes longer, they engage in these efforts of making these deep bargains with God. Take this away from me. I'll be extra righteous. I'll take 2 callings. I'll take 3 callings. I'll go to the temple weekly. Some people would fast for multiple days at a time, all in this effort to try and make it go away. When you plead to God and you ask for him to take it away and he doesn't, and then you see people standing up saying, it worked for me, that leads you with one real conclusion, and that's that you're the broken one, that you're the one that's unredeemable, that you're so bad and so broken that you're not even worth God's efforts at changing. That's when reparative therapy becomes often fatal for these people. And so we have to realize that it's much deeper and more involved than just stamping out these camps or these therapists. It's working to change this message that putting faith in Jesus or in God is going to be the answer, because that's actually the most damaging message people can receive.
That's absolutely true, and ultimately, gay teenagers need to, like all teenagers, need to have hope for their future, and they need to have hope that they can fall in love, that they can be married, and that they can have their own families. And unfortunately, in this state and in many others, in large part due to religious traditions, there are kids who don't believe that they can have that. And that's really unfortunate, and those kids need to have hope. They need to have the support of their communities. The law has made great strides in the last few years, and so has society, and that's why I remain hopeful that even Utah will someday change.
Okay, so I know you guys have a lot of questions. I think we should go ahead and wrap up. I want to ask Alex one quick question, then I'm going to bring up a friend. So Alex, if there are any parents here or within the sort of range of our podcast or listening audience who discover that they have a gay or lesbian or bisexual child or trans child, and they're a faithful, believing church member, do you have any advice for those parents?
Don't be weird. Treat your child like they're normal because they are normal, and be there to support them because they're going to have a rough time.
And what if they're taught that how their child is evil or bad? What would you say to that parent who had, just like your parents, had that very sincere belief?
That's just dumb. That's super dumb.
But what if it's their sacred, sincere belief? Could you make a plea that might not hurt their feelings quite as bad? What would your plea be?
I would take a step back and decide if any type of this kind of therapy is going to damage your child. Do you want to damage your child? No, parents don't want to do that. So just don't. It's going to be okay. They've probably had some time to think about it and deal with it before they've talked to you. So just give yourself some time to think about it and come to terms with it, because your child being in your life it's really important.
So the ultimate answer of how to treat the child is what?
Be nice. Be supportive.
Yeah. Loving?
Loving.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning Caitlin Ryan's Family Acceptance Project here. Caitlin Ryan is a researcher out of San Francisco State University. She tried to sort of tease out, the most important factors in what leads to things like drug use, risky sexual behavior, and even suicide. And the project that she came up with is called the Family Acceptance Project. And what she found is that if a LGBT youth experiences a high level of rejection from their family, which includes being kicked out of their home, there's a serious homelessness problem here, but also just pushing them to try and change, rejection, making them feel bad about how they are. Any sort of serious familial rejection makes that child 3 times more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior, 3 times more likely to engage in drug use, and 8 times more likely to attempt suicide. And so if you want your child to survive and thrive, don't reject them, love them. Is that fair to say? All right. I want to bring up Stephanie really quick. Stephanie, are you here? Stephanie, we have a member of our local community who has an idea, and the idea is just in its very early stages. How many of you are from Provo, Orem, Utah County area? All right, and there's many in our listening audience as well. Stephanie, can you come up to the microphone? Is that all right? And just tell us what your idea is, and we can talk about how to get a hold of you if anyone else wants to support.
All right, I'm not ready for this, but the idea is, let's first say in Ogden, there is a place that's been around, 15 years? I think it's been around about 15 years that's been helping LGBT youth.
Ogden Outreach, right?
Well, it's called the Outreach Resource Center. Okay. They've expanded into Brigham City, Logan, and also, I think, Clearfield. We don't have anything as far as any of us know in Utah County. I would believe if there's anywhere that there's a need, it's right here. The goal would be, first of all, to save lives. Second of all, to give these kids love. Let them know they're okay as is. And to help their families accept them and love them for who they are. I'd also like to change this community to make it a safe place for everyone. We need your support in any way, any talent you've got to share with these kids. If you can help paint a house for us, if you've got money to contribute, if you've got time to mentor, we need it. And I think this group right here is probably our biggest allies. So please help us. I've been harassing John, and he's got our back, so thank you.
How can people, you can email me at johndolin@gmail.com. I'll put you in touch with Stephanie. Is there any other way they can reach out? Is that the best way?
We checked. If you'll set up the domain, we can do the House of Humanity, which I'd like to teach people we're all humans. It's about love. And so right now the hope is it will be called the House of Humanity. I'd like it downtown Provo, where it's close to the homeless shelters, where they feed people, where the temple is, where business is, so that we're visual, yet we want it to be a safe place for youth to come and feel safe. As of right now, it's stephanielarson@gmail.com. My name is spelled incorrectly, so it's all E's, Stephanie with an E, and they'll never remember that. So the sooner we can get up a domain, and maybe John will put that out, that's the best way.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You guys interested? All right. Thank you, Stephanie. How many of you are interested in being a part of that? Anybody? All right. All right, I think we've got something good going on here that maybe can start today. How would you guys feel about giving Alex and Paul a round of applause for their courage? Excellent. Okay. So I did all the acknowledgments at the beginning. I'll just say again, thanks for your support of Mormon Stories and the Open Stories Foundation. Please support us there. Please support Stephanie and the good work that she's hoping to do. We want to thank again Velour for sponsoring us. We want to thank Troy Williams and Equality Utah for also being our sponsor. Please check out their booth in the back. Please support the Equality Utah and the Allies dinner and all the other things. They have some exciting stuff coming up. Please purchase books with Benchmark Books. We want to again thank them for hosting us. We want to thank Joanna Brooks, HarperCollins, and all those who have been a part of making this possible, Richard and Chad, Lindsay Hansen Park and Sunstone. And again, if any of you are interested in our Mormon Transitions support retreat, April 1st through 3rd, we'd love to have you. So we want to thank you for coming out. Please join us at mormonstories.org to comment about this episode. Please share Mormon Stories with your friends and family. Please consider donating to support us. We'll do this as long as you guys feel like it's worth it. And then when it's no longer worth it, I'll go do other things. But until then, I'm committed to you guys as long as you're committed to supporting us. And with that, how would you guys like to hear maybe a song or two more from Tyler? Anyone interested? All right. So maybe let's bring Tyler back out. Let's give Tyler and Brandon a round of applause.
Thank you guys once again for coming out tonight. Tonight holds a special place in my heart because of the cause. And I reached out to, this is Brandon from my band Neon Trees. He's joining me tonight. I reached out kind of wanting to know if Alex had a song that she loved or that like maybe fit the mood or the theme of the night. And the response I got was kind of a curious one, but I think it has actually a great kind of relatable message. The answer was Rehab by Amy Winehouse. So they tried to send her to gay rehab and she said, no. Oh, yep. We got it. We're putting on a show, Chance. Come on.
They tried to make me go to rehab, but I said no. Yes, I've been black, but when I come back, you no. I ain't got the time and think that Daddy thinks I'm fine. He's tried to make me go to rehab, but I won't go. I'd rather be at home with Ray. I ain't got 70 days. 'Cause there's nothing you can teach me that I can't learn from Mr. Hathaway. I didn't get a lot in class, but I know it don't come in a shot glass. They tried to make me go to rehab, but I won't go. Yes, I've been black, but when I come back, you no. I ain't got the time. I think that Daddy thinks I'm fine. They tried to make me go to rehab, but I won't go. The man said, what do you think you're here? I said, I got no idea. I'm gonna lose my baby. So I keep a bottle near. He said, I just think you're depressed. I said, I know me, baby, and the rest. They tried to make me go, but I won't go. Yes, I've been black, but when I come back, you no. I just need a friend. not just my pride. Ooh, it's just till these tears have dried. They tried to make me go to rehab. Yes, I've been black, but when I come back, you'll know, no. And I ain't got the time. I think that Daddy thinks I'm fine. They tried to make me go to rehab, but I won't go.
I just wanted to, I don't know, I've just been feeling so much lately, and I have so much pride to be still from Utah, and to, I have so much gratitude to be on this stage, because this is a place where Neon Trees began 10 years ago. But I know it was kind of a gamble to have an event like this down in Utah County, and maybe it wasn't, but some people thought it was. So it means a lot that you filled this place, and it also, I'm just so proud to be a gay man in 2016 and open, and I want to do what I can to make people feel happy to be alive. So we're gonna my band put out our first album 6 years ago today, so we're gonna play our first breakthrough song, and the night is all Alex's, so give her a round of applause one more time.
Here we go again. I kinda wanna be more than friends, so take it easy on me. I'm afraid you'll never satisfied. Here we go again. We're sick like animals, we play pretend. You're just a cannibal, and I am afraid I won't get out alive. No, I won't sleep tonight. Oh, I want some more. Oh, what are you waiting for? Take a bite of my heart tonight. Oh, I want some more. Oh, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Say goodbye to my heart tonight. Here we are again. I feel the chemicals, they're kicking in. It's getting heavy and I wanna run and hide. I wanna run and hide. I do it every time. You're killing me now. And I won't be denied by you. The animal inside of you. Oh, I want some more. Oh, what are you waiting for? Take a bite of my heart tonight. Oh, I want some more. Oh, what are you waiting for? Yeah, what are you waiting for? Say goodbye to my heart. Hush, hush, the world is quiet. Hush, hush, we both can't fight it. It's us that made this mess. Why can't you understand? Oh, I won't sleep tonight. I won't sleep. Oh, I want some more. Oh, what are you waiting for? Take a bite of my heart tonight. Oh, I want some more. Oh, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Say goodbye to my heart tonight.
night. Thank you very much. Have an amazing night.
Thank you for joining us today on Mormon Stories Podcast. To discuss this podcast with others, please check us out at mormonstories.org. To join one of our 80-plus support communities across the globe, click on the Support Communities tab at mormonstories.org. To keep this podcast alive, please consider a tax-deductible donation today by becoming a monthly subscriber at mormonstories.org. Audio and video for this podcast were provided by Richard Holdman. A big thanks to the Saber Rattlers for providing the music for today's episode. The Mormon Stories logo was generously donated by StudioCase.com.
Come, come, ye saints,